Module 3. Let's review some common problems and troubleshooting tips. First of all, you need to fully understand the problem that users are experiencing. When that's understood, you need to analyze the current configuration to identify the source of the problem. If there's a gap between the current setup and the target setup, or the problem does not exist by design, or it is not a user-specific problem, then you need a strategy to help bridge that gap. If there is a problem with the configuration, once you've identified your solution, you can then implement it. But remember, sometimes all you need to do is inform your users how they can bridge the gap themselves. The emphasis of this approach will be on the first two steps, asking the right questions while establishing a baseline and understanding the problem often leads directly to the only action that will resolve it. If the problem is not straightforward, it is crucial to analyze the current setup and understand the big picture. This may include the consideration of different definitions of the problem in order to correctly identify it. Let's start with this example, which is a common use case. Content that was in a space is now inaccessible. Amy used to be able to view 2 pages in the space, but after her colleague moved them, she is no longer able to see them. What questions can we ask? Let's confirm that the pages are still available, and if they are, where they are. Make sure that Amy has the correct permissions for the space and that she wasn't mistaken when she searched for the pages. Amy confirms that she's able to view other pages in the space, and she tells you the names of the pages that she can't access. We know that she must have view permissions for the space, so either the pages have been deleted, moved, or view restrictions have changed. Now, let's try to replicate the problem. You perform a search to locate the pages. You confirm that the pages do indeed exist and that they do not have any restrictions applied directly to them. However, the pages have a parent page that has view restrictions applied to it, restricting page view to members of the accounts group. You check and confirm that Amy is not a member of this group. In order to resolve this problem, we need to manage the page restrictions on the new parent page so that Amy is able to view the page. How should we do this? We could add Amy to the accounts group. Amy is not on the accounts team, and you are aware that the accounts group is used in space permissions in other spaces. You don't want to inadvertently give her more permissions than she needs. So instead, you add her so she can view the page as an individual. You should also check that access to the parent page does not give Amy access to view other pages in the hierarchy that she shouldn't access. Now, you can ask Amy if she is able to access the page that she was unable to access before. Ask her to confirm that she can't access any other pages in the page hierarchy. Amy logs in and confirms that she can view the pages. Make sure that you add some documentation for your users explaining what happens with page restrictions and inheritance. Let's talk through another example. Mike is invited to HR group to view a page by sending them a shared link to the page. Mike tells you that he made sure that he added the group to the can view restrictions for the page. However, the users in that group report they cannot access the page. Start by asking the right questions. You need to understand who the targeted users are, and you need to check that those users have the can use global permission and they can log into Confluence. Make sure that they have the space permissions for the space. Then check to ensure that the page actually exists and that it hasn't been deleted or moved. Make sure the users weren't mistaken when they chose to navigate to the page using the shared link. Were they trying to access the instance from outside a company firewall? Is the page in question a child page of a page with restrictions applied to it? Critically, you should confirm the details of any on-screen error messages that they receive when they try to access the page. Reporting they can't access a page could mean a number of things. The message may include, for example, a link to request access. If so, then this is a different problem than page not found. Now, let's try to replicate the problem. You navigate to the page to confirm it's there and it hasn't been moved. Check the page restrictions. You can confirm that the HR team group has been added to the list of groups and users who can view the page. You also check and confirm that inherited content level restrictions are not being applied by a parent or a page higher in the hierarchy. So the page exists, some users can access it, and the HR team group is included in the list of users and groups who can view the page. The page-related permissions are in place. The problem must be with a higher level permission. Let's look at the highest level. Has the group been given the can-use global permissions for this Confluence instance? You check that 3 users, Peggy, Ed, and Simon, have been added to HR team group. You confirm that the group exists and that Peggy, Ed, and Simon belong to the group. At this point, you can check that each group member has the can-use global permissions. You check and can confirm that all 3 users belong to the Confluence users group and that group has been granted the can-use global permissions. So far, so good. All necessary global permissions and settings are in place. This leads us to the next check, which is to see if users have the correct space permissions. This is the missing piece so far, and so it seems likely that the members of the HR team do not have the necessary permissions for the space. You access the Events Space Admin panel and confirm that the HR team group has not been given view permission for the space. You could also check to see if the members of the HR team group were given access to the space via another group. However, you can just grant the HR team's group view space permissions and any other space level permissions the HR team should have. Now that you've granted the HR team all of the necessary permissions, you need to test to make sure that they are able to access the content. You could create a dummy user, give it exactly the same permissions as a member of the HR team, and check to see if the user can access the page. Or, the easier option would be to ask the members of the HR team if they are now able to access the page in the events space. When you receive confirmation that the HR team is able to access the pages as expected, you confirm that they have the required global and space level permissions along with the necessary page access. Finally, we confirm that all members of the HR team group are able to access the page as expected. Then we can consider the problem solved.